Hello everyone, and welcome to Skills to Pay the Bills. I'm James Jack. I'm a realtor. I do a lot of real estate work in the Washington, D.C., Virginia, and suburban Maryland area. So normally the people who I bring on to talk to are professionals in those areas too, whether they be real estate agents and salespersons, or whether they are loan officers, people who do mortgages, home inspectors, people like that. But today, I'm going to take a different path. I'm here by myself because this is a story I would like to tell that actually took place a couple of months ago, in fact, on December 23rd, yes, 2 days before Christmas. It sort of reminds me of a piece that author James Baldwin wrote many, many years ago called The Fire Next Time. This time, there was a fire, and it was, of course, not of biblical proportions, but it was an eye-opener. On the morning of the 23rd, my neighbor Jim, who lives next door to a property that I own in Prince George's County, called me around 11 o'clock in the morning, and he said, "You better get over here. Your house is on fire." So my wife and I got in the car. We drove over. It's normally about a 8, 9, 10-minute ride over. It's about 2 or 3 miles from our house, but it seems like an eternity getting there because all the time my heart is pumping, the adrenaline is flowing. I'm wondering, did anyone get hurt? Or worse, what's the status of things? As we approached the street that I was going to turn onto where the house is located, we were overtaken by a fire truck. That made it even worse. And as we drove down the street and got closer and closer to the house, we saw lots of fire trucks, ambulances, people just everywhere. And of course, my heart sank even more because I was concerned about the tenants, a young man who is a minister, and his 3 teenage kids. So as we got there, we parked about 75 feet away from the house, and we were approached by someone who worked for the fire department, and they said, "Let me tell you what's going on. We've just about got everything under control. We don't think that there was anyone in the house." Of course, that made me feel much better. My wife took a breath of, I guess you could say, just took a deep breath, and we proceeded to ask questions, and he gave us answers. So we walked into my neighbor's yard and stood there beside him. I thanked him for calling me, and we stood there at a distance from the house, watching the house being engulfed by the last of the flames. The fire department knocked out every window. The house was built in 1902. It was about 110 years old, stone masonry, probably could withstand a hurricane of, adequate proportions. So we never thought about a fire or anything like that. When the fire investigators who were working there approached me, they said they could not determine what the cause of the fire was, the origin or anything, because the suspected place where they thought the fire started had burned down, a back porch, an enclosed back porch. That just really made me wonder what could have happened. We thought maybe it was an accident. We never thought it was arson. All we could do was just sit there, or stand there, I should say, and watch. So one by one, different professionals from the fire department, from other agencies came over, talked to us, asked us whether or not we knew the people were there during that time of day, and we told them no, they were probably in church. And sure as they say, the tenant and his kids came up, and everybody was just standing there looking. If you've never seen a fire take place, it is devastating. You see it on television, you see it in the movies, it's not the same. When you're standing 50 yards away from a house and you're seeing it engulfed, it's just unbelievable. Smoke is everywhere. When you stand there and you look at the number of emergency vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, all kinds of vehicles, police cars, and you're wondering, my, what is really happening here? It's like you're taken out of the world that you're in and you're tossed into another arena where you have no control over anything at all. So we stood there for about an hour and a half until the fire investigator came over and said that they thought that they had everything extinguished. During that time, we saw the ambulances leave, and that was a reassurance that no one was inside the house. That was a sigh of relief. One by one, the fire trucks began to leave. And of course, as the crowds themselves began to leave, we stood there wondering, what do we do next? Well, since the fire department has all these things coordinated, they told us what we needed to do. And this is something that you should take into consideration, and that's the reason why I'm telling the story. We didn't know that at that time there was an ordinance that said that if you have a fire in a dwelling, the house has to be boarded up within 8 hours, because an inspector would come by the next day and you can be fined for having an open building. It's an attractive nuisance to some people. Vagrants have been known to move into vacated houses that have been burned or whatever the case may be. And so we had to find out what to do next. So we called the insurance company, and the insurance company told us that what we needed to do was have someone to board up the house. They recommended someone, and by nightfall, a crew of men came by, and they were there for several hours, and they were boarding up this 2-story house. And you never imagine how many windows you have until either you have to buy them or until you have to board them up. Fortunately, we got everything done except for several of the upstairs windows by nightfall, and then the next day they came and completed it. I came the next day to take a look at what the damage was really about. When I got there around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, there was still smoke coming out of the window areas that had not been boarded up or where smoke could make its way through the cracks. One of the windows that had not been boarded up was on the second floor, and so we climbed a ladder, a contractor and I, and we went inside. If you've never been in a house that has been burned before, you probably will never want to go inside for several reasons, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So what I want to do is just sort of walk you through what we saw when we went into the house. But instead of taking you into the house the way we went in, we'll go through the back door. And as you see the picture of the house from the rear side, you can see where there was a wooden or wood frame back porch that was totally burned out. And that's where the fire investigators said the fire started. But they couldn't figure out how it started. They have some way of determining by burn spots and hot spots and all kinds of other things what could have possibly happened. Well, we went in through the door, in this instance, through what was left of the kitchen door. And when we walked in, it was hardly recognizable as a kitchen. Everything was burned. Everything was burned so to the point where you had to stand there and determine this was a range, and that's where the microwave was. The refrigerator was gone, just obliterated. The kitchen cabinets, the sink, the ceiling, everything was burned. Unbelievable. What made it so unbelievable even more was that was the only light coming in, daylight. And even with the daylight, we could barely see what was going on. We turned on our flashlights and we just started walking from room to room, trying to get an idea as to what was going on. The kitchen is here, and the next room is the living room going forward. The fire department said that the fire started on the back porch, made its way into the kitchen, and built up momentum. And as it built up momentum, it made its way into the living room. It burned the mantle on the fireplace that had been there since 1902. It burned the windows. It burned the bump-out window on the side where the children would sit and read and play. It cracked the windows that had not been boarded up entirely. So from the living room, we were able to determine, that yes, this is the living room because we know where we are in the house, but you could barely see anything. So imagine if you're in a house that is either burning or that has been burned and you can't see anything at all. The first thing that you are cautioned about is watching your step. because you don't know what's in front of you. Well, the next thing in front of us to the living room was the front foyer. The front door was burned out entirely, and it was boarded up. But we knew it was the front door because, of course, we knew the house very well. Next to the foyer, the stairs going upwards, and that's where we went. We went up the stairs one by one, pounding each step to see whether or not it would hold us, because fire burns everything, and not only the things above you, but the things below you and beside you. We couldn't touch the walls. We couldn't touch any of the objects and things like that. And the reason why is because when a fire consumes a dwelling, the things that burn give off carbon monoxide and other poisonous gases, possibly toxic gases, as they say, because these things are made out of synthetics and all kinds of other things that are, that's going on. You walk cautiously because you don't know if there are wires dangling. If there's gas in the house, you don't know whether or not you're going to step on a pipe that's going to cause the gas to be emitted from the pipes that the gas is trapped inside of. But we made our way up the stairs. As we made our way up the stairs, they were finally closing off the last of the windows, and it was like we had walked into a hole. You couldn't see anything. So I had 2 flashlights, and I was shining one down on the floor so I could see where I was going, and in the ceiling to make sure that I didn't bump into anything. And the other flashlight I used to try to identify certain things. Unbelievable. I saw pictures. I saw books. I saw furniture. But on top of all of it was a layer of soot and ash. And with the smoke still in the air and the dust still in the air, it was just unimaginable. Unimaginable. So the first room that we went into was the master bedroom. And a lot of the stuff in the master bedroom was burned on the back side of the house as you're going toward the back side of the house. But as you move toward the front side of the house, those things weren't burned, but they were damaged by smoke. Anything that was plastic was bubbled up where the heat had gotten to it. A lot of people wonder, well, how hot can it get inside of a house? Well, believe it or not, the temperatures inside of a burning house or a house that is burned can exceed 1,500 degrees. Water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit is really hot. It burns everything. And all the things that it doesn't burn, the heat causes it to prostrate, and of course, it's just not anything that you would want to even be around. So we made our way into the bathroom behind the master bedroom. The tub was burned. The sink was burned. The toilets were burned, or the toilet, I should say, was burned. The mirror was totally destroyed. The windows, the framing and everything was just gone. So we stopped there for a moment and we thought, should we leave now because we've been in here too long? We didn't know what was ahead of us. So we decided that maybe we should just go a little bit farther and then make our way out. In a minute, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened after that. But first, a message.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put that out.
Welcome back to Skills to Pay the Bills. I'm James Jack, and as I told you earlier, or if you're just joining us, I'm a realtor in the Washington, D.C. area. Real estate is normally what I do, but this time I'm taking a different path to talk about what happened, or to continue telling you the story of what happened on December 23rd, 2012, when my neighbor called me and told me, "Your house is on fire." The house that he was talking about was a house that my wife and I own, and we rented to a minister and his 3 teenage kids. So we arrived at the house and we're walking through the house, and where are we now? We're on the second floor, we're walking out of the master bedroom bath, and we're going into one of the other bedrooms. So we look around and we can't hardly make out anything without spotting the flashlight on it. These are the kids' toys, well, not toys, but the boys' equipment and clothes and things like that. They were there, and it was like, okay, we're seeing someone's life unfold in front of us in terms of all their personal effects destroyed by fire. Not only destroyed by the fire, but destroyed by the firemen who had to get in there and open up the walls, because I never knew that fire could actually get inside of a wall and cause even more damage than what you see from the outside, or from what, if you were in the room, you would see. So we made our way around and then back down the stairs, again carefully, not touching anything for fear of it falling on us or us falling into it or the floor caving in under us. This is a house that's 110 years old, and I'm thinking to myself, this house almost withstood the fire, with the exception of some of the things inside the house. The ceilings were burned on the first floor, but the floors were not burned on the second floor. The timbers we could see now in the house that were handmade, not the stuff that you would find at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever the case may be, but each one made to fit that house as it was being built 110 years before. The plaster walls that had been there forever and ever, long before there was HVAC, or what we call forced air heating and things like that. A house that had been heated by a fireplace, a hearth, or whatever the case may be. So we make our way downstairs and eventually out through the dining room and back again through the kitchen, which was the most burned area. We made our way out of the house just in time, because even though I had on mask, double mask and everything else and goggles, I could feel the soot and the smoke and everything going into my chest. And the first thing I'm thinking to myself is, my God, did I just write my own obituary? I need to get out of here. So we got out of the house and we walked away from the house and stood there and looked at it. By that time, another fire investigator had come by, and he was looking at the bricks and everything, and he basically said, part of this house is going to have to come down. And so he explained that even with bricks, and most of the time you think that, well, a brick can withstand a fire, or whatever the case may be, but fire and the heat that it creates can change the chemical makeup of most things, the molecular structure. It can actually hurt the structural integrity of the building. Now, this building we thought was just indestructible. But on the back corner of the house, as you will see in the picture, where the back porch was before it burned, that section on each side, we were told later, has to come down on both the first and the second levels, meaning that because the fire got so hot, it caused the brick and the mortar to expand, and that over a period of time, if it's not fixed, it not only will fall, but it could actually bring down another section of the house. So the first thing I'm thinking about is, OMG, how much of this is the insurance going to cover? Well, that turned out all right. But the other aspect of it was this. This work has got to be done very quickly, because if someone comes in and not knowing that that part of the building is weak, it could be at that moment that that part of the building collapses. So that part of the work is being done now. And later on, I'll tell you about how we are redoing the building. But I want to go a little bit farther and take you around the house so you can see, as they say, before and after, what the house looked like before. It was beautiful. It sits on it sits on 1.5 acres of land almost. And it looks like a garden in the springtime. When we first bought the house, about 40% of the land was consumed by bamboo, and we got rid of all of that. And we planned to have rose gardens and all kinds of other things. And so it's a labor of love to just sit back sometimes in midsummer and just look at the progress that has been made. And then when the fall comes around and you look at the foliage from the trees, it's just really beautiful, as you could see in the before pictures. But when you look at the after pictures, you have to ask yourself, how much of this can be recovered? Well, some can, some can't. That's the way it is. But we're going to try our best to bring it back to its original state, the way it looked, at least about 75% when it was built 102 years ago. The windows will be different. We can't find the wood that the windows were made out of. We can't find some of the wood that the staircase was made of. We can't find the wood that the fireplace mantle was made of, but we'll do the very best that we can. But as you look at the after pictures, you can see how the smoke and the fire made its way out of the windows, made its way up into the roof. And it didn't burn the roof, but it caused enough damage where the roof has to be partially taken apart, and how the heat just rose up to a point where the asphalt shingles and everything just burn, and all of that has to be replaced. So we don't mind doing that. But in looking at the house now, sometimes I think to myself, it's very, very, very important for me to tell other people that we were lucky that no one was in the house and that only things were destroyed. But what if it had been the other way? You need to take inventory of what's in your house. Your furniture, your appliances, the way your house is heated and cooled, whether or not your electrical system is up to par or up to code, as they say, whether or not you have flammable materials inside the house, things that can ignite. Sometimes people will bring a gas can in after mowing the lawn without thinking twice about it. So those things you have to take a look at. But the most important thing that you need to do is you need to have a plan of escape. You need to know your house. You need to really crawl through the house on your own with your family and say, in case there's a fire here, we can take this exit, or we can take this exit. You need to know where everyone is, and you need to practice this on a regular basis. So the next time we get together, I'm going to tell you how you can draw an escape plan and how you can utilize it, how you need to put fire extinguishers in certain places and make sure that you have smoke detectors that really work. Not that you just check every time the clock is turned forward or turned backwards, but literally every month or two to just make sure you don't have a defective battery, because it can save your life. You need to be able to know exactly where everyone is most of the time, so if you get out, when the professionals get there, they can go in and find those persons who are unaccountable for. When you get out, get away as quickly as you possibly can to a safe place, because you never can tell what might explode inside of the house, you and your friends and family who were in the house. Most of all, don't go back into the house. There's virtually nothing you can do but hurt yourself. So, in short, I hope that the information that I've given you is workable for you or for a friend. I hope that you actually take a little time to think about, that could have been my house or my neighbor's house. You need to be able to be prepared just in case it happens to you. Because as I said early on, it may not be the fire next time. It could be for you the fire this time. So I look forward to you coming back, sitting here with me, and me telling you a little bit more about what you can do to prepare for a fire or any type of emergency such as that, and also to just sort of give you some pointers on what you can do to make sure that on a regular basis, you are prepared, and you will not have to tell this story to someone else with any sad consequences, but instead you'll come out like hopefully we will be in a couple of months when I come back and I can show you pictures of how the house was rebuilt and how we were able to substitute those things that could not be replaced with things that sort of fit in. And that's where the real estate part comes back in again, because I'm going to bring some professionals in who are giving us advice on what you can do to take the place of what could not be replaced because it was 100 years old. Well, they say whenever you love your job, the best part about it is giving back what you've gotten from that. And I really love real estate, and I hope that this has been a moment of giving back, and I hope that you share this information with someone that you love or someone that you know or your neighbor too. And I hope for God's sake that you never ever have to walk through a house that has been burned so badly that you can't recognize anything in it or you can't see 5 feet in front of your face. I'm James Jack, and I'm with Ernestine J. Wilson Real Estate. We're realtors, but we're real people too. And because of that, I've been fortunate enough to come and share this with you. Thank you. You have a wonderful time doing whatever you're doing.